Hello there guys, welcome back to another video. We are back working on the N62 powered V8 BMW 650i today. Before we get into things, do me a massive favour, hit that thumbs up button. It really does help me out and it shows your appreciation. Now then, exactly what are we going to be doing today? So with this having the N62 engine, it does have a couple of common problems. One of those common problems is for the coolant transfer pipe, which runs from the front of the engine to the back. It is known to leak, and it leaks out of the front timing cover right here. There is a small weep hole. Once you notice that is leaking, that is a for sure sign that your coolant transfer pipe itself is leaking. And why does it leak? Well, it typically leaks in most cases around the front seal where the water pump goes into the coolant transfer pipe. Can you replace that seal? No, you cannot. You have to buy the entire coolant transfer pipe, and it's a very involved job to access it. You basically have to take the whole entire top end of the engine off. Now, needless to say, mine is not currently leaking. However, I know it is a potential issue in the future, and I want to future-proof this thing. I want to do some preventative maintenance. I've done a whole bunch of other jobs on this car to try and make this engine bulletproof, and we need to tackle this before it becomes an issue. So I'm not going to be replacing the entire coolant transfer pipe. I'm going to be taking a different approach and doing a much easier permanent fix, and that is to install the Bimmerfix transfer pipe stent. Now in this video I will show you exactly how this gets installed, exactly how to use the whole kit and all the rest of it. I have also done this job on my V12 BMW 760 Li that has the N73 engine. It's basically the exact same setup, but that went successfully and I've had no issues with that in the past 3 or 4 years. And like I said, we're going to be doing the exact same on this engine as well. Now, along with the Bimmerfix coolant pipe stent, we're also going to be swapping out a few coolant system related parts as well. It's a good idea because you do have to remove the water pump. We're also going to be swapping out the water pump. We also have a new thermostat. We also have a new coolant reservoir. I've noticed the one on the car is missing the important dipstick, so that's why this needs replacing. Also have a new cap as well. Of course, we have some coolant slash antifreeze and then some distilled water. Now all of these parts, they were supplied by Turner Motorsport. You'll probably notice that these are either genuine BMW or they are genuine OEM parts. So for example, this is a Mahler coolant reservoir, genuine, what they use from factory. This is a Wala thermostat, again this is what was used from factory. And then this is a Soleri water pump, again what is used from factory. It should have a BMW stamp on, but it has just been scratched off so that they can sell it as an aftermarket product. Now if you do want to get any of these parts along with the Bimmerfix coolant transfer repair system kit, I will leave all of the details down in that description box below, so feel free to check that out. But like I said, let's get cracking with this job. Now you probably noticed that obviously I already have removed a few parts, basically just the intake pipe and the engine air box. Oh, and the main engine cover as well. Once you have those removed, then you should be looking how I am right now. Now then, let's get straight into things. So I think for starters, what would be the wise idea would be to drain the coolant, because if we just straight up remove the water pump as it is, we're going to end up with a big mess anyway. So I think what I'll do is see if I can access the radiator drain plug, or maybe just remove one of the lower radiator hoses just to get the majority of the coolant out. So yeah, we do in fact have a radiator drain plug, so I'm just going to insert a flat bladed screwdriver in there, unscrew it, and then we should have our coolant coming out of there. So I've cracked it open, only had a small dribble come out. I imagine it's just under vacuum. So if I crack open the expansion tank, Should start draining out now. While I let that drain away, I'll just get these connectors removed. So this is for the water pump, and then this one down here is for the thermostat. To remove these, just push in this clip, push, and then it just pop off. You may as well now go ahead and remove the drive belt itself. Obviously it goes onto the water pump pulley, so we need to have that out of the way. Need a T60 socket and insert that into the slot on the automatic belt tensioner. Rotate clockwise and you should be able to slide the belt off. We're also going to have to remove the water pump pulley itself, just held in by those 4 10mm. Now if you don't have any power tools, then probably a good idea to remove the pulley before you remove the belt. Obviously just going to help prevent the pulley from trying to spin round while you release the bolts. But they shouldn't be tight. Pretty sure it's something like 10 Nm for these. That's those 4 bolts removed. The pulley may just pull off, or it may be a bit seized. It is only plastic though, so you do have to be careful removing it. Now I will get a pry tool in here, but I'm not going to go crazy on it. Like I said, it is only plastic. But if it's not too badly seized, then yeah, just comes off nice and easily. Now we have this power steering fluid pipe, which is, it's not directly in the way, but I'd like to just have that sort of tucked up out of the way if possible. It's just held in by 2 clamps, just a 10mm nut there, 10mm nut there, and we should be able to have a bit more wiggle room on that then. Yeah, we just have a little bit more maneuverability with that now. We can now begin unclamping some of the coolant pipes. So there's one there, there's one there, and then there is a smaller one, I believe, at the bottom as well. So I think there's 4 in total. We just need to get a small bladed screwdriver or pick tool, pop that clip out, then we should be able to pull it off then, again, if it's not too seized. Okay, so all 4 hoses now disconnected. All wasn't too bad, to be honest, apart from this one here where it goes into the thermostat. If you find it stuck and you don't really have much success prying it away, just keep wiggling it back and forth while of course trying to pull it off, and yeah, it will eventually give way. But yeah, now that all the hoses are disconnected, it's just a case of unbolting the water pump, and it should be held in by just 5 10mm bolts or 10mm hex head bolts. And it's always handy when you have a nice new part to go on, because you can see exactly where all of the bolts are located. So yeah, I'm just going to remove all those. Water pump should then come off, and we should have access then to the coolant transfer pipe itself. So I mentioned there's 5 bolts. Well, 4 of them are straightforward to remove. I remember now, it's all coming back to me. The 5th one at the bottom is covered by the crankshaft pulley, and to remove that bolt without removing the crankshaft pulley, which we could do, but it's a bit of a pain, so I'd rather not do, just remove the automatic tensioner, just that 1 bolt, 16mm hex head bolt, get that out of the way, and then you should be able to get a 10mm spanner or 10mm wrench on that bolt, and you'd just be able to crack it loose sort of a quarter of a turn at a time. Once it's loose enough, you'll be able to remove it with your fingers. I'm pretty sure it's out. I can't quite get it removed yet though, because it's now hitting the back of the crankshaft pulley. Now there is a slot in the crankshaft pulley. I imagine that's to allow that bolt to come out. It's not big enough to have the head of the bolt go through it, but I guess the shaft of the bolt is big enough to, you know, go through that slot. And I have rotated the crankshaft pulley clockwise, of course, and lined up that slot. If you're wondering which socket it takes, 27mm socket on the middle nut, not the smaller bolts. The middle nut is directly onto the crankshaft. Rotate that, get that slot lined up, and yeah, with any luck, this water pump should now pull off. Obviously, still position your bucket underneath, because we are going to have some more coolant spill out. And imagine it's just this short pipe that's keeping it held in place now. There we are. Now, are you going to be able to manoeuvre this? Ah, there we are. The bolts came with the water pump. There we are. So that bottom bolt removed. So we have to remember, when we install the new water pump, make sure the bolt is installed into it, otherwise you're not going to get it into place. But just to check the original water pump for wear, it's absolutely fine. There's no problems with it, to be honest. Again, with the thermostat, there's no problems. It's getting up to temp and all the rest of it. But because we are removing it, and it's not really a job you probably want to do twice, so it's worth just replacing it. And you know, the new water pump and thermostat will be good for the life of the car then. As I mentioned, you do have these two shorter pipes. They have to go into the new water pump, so make sure they are seated properly. But for now, we can get onto prepping and installing the transfer pipe stent, which just sits in there. Don't know how well I'm going to be able to get a camera in here. Yeah, it's very tight in there to see, but essentially there is a seal just in there, and that's what we're going to be sealing up permanently so it can never leak. If you do notice that you have a leak, if this transfer pipe is leaking, then this is the weep hole here. This whole valley will fill up with water and you'll have it start to weep out there. A lot of people think it's the water pump that's leaking. It's not the water pump, it is the transfer pipe if you notice you have a leak from there. So yeah, this is a good little fix that Bimmerfix have came up with. Okay, so let's get the Bimmerfix stent installed then. I will try and show you as best as possible. Obviously, just bear in mind that it's quite tight here and it's quite difficult to get a camera right in here. The kit does come with step-by-step instructions anyway. They are virtually foolproof. So if you are getting this kit, best to follow along the step-by-step instructions and you cannot go wrong. Basically, first thing what you need to do is make sure that the entire area and the front section of the transfer pipe is nice and clean and there's not any of the original seal protruding into the transfer pipe. I have put my finger in here and yeah, because it's not leaking, because the seal is still fine, it feels still fine. I can feel it protruding like maybe, you know, a millimetre or two, but I think that's going to be absolutely fine. That's exactly how it should be. Next thing then is to use our sanding rod. Now sometimes there can be a bit of a bump in the casting that needs to be ground down slightly just so it's nice and smooth, but we also need to rough up the inside of the transfer pipe just to give our sealant something to adhere to. You don't want it to be dead smooth, so I'm just going to insert this and just kind of get it roughed up. We now need to make sure that the transfer pipe is nice and clean. That is where we have this cleaning rod. You can just insert this into there just to get rid of any debris or any last bit of antifreeze that might be in there. You just want to make sure that the transfer pipe and this front timing cover is as dry and as clean as possible. Obviously we are going to be applying sealant directly to this. Okay, so just went to test fit the new stent and it's not quite going in easily yet, so I still have some more sanding to do it would seem. Okay, so finally got the stent to sit in flush. Ended up having to sand it quite a bit in the end. Yeah, it didn't seem like there was much of a bump in the casting, but yeah, I had to really sand that an awful lot. But yeah, it's nice and free in there now, and yeah, it's seated all the way. So yeah, I'm going to get that now removed, and we can get some sealant applied and get that thing installed permanently. So with the stent removed then, first of all I need to apply some sealant to the inside. Make sure it's nice and sealed where the original seal goes. And finally we can take our stent and apply sealant to the whole of this. Make sure the entire thing's covered. Don't have to go too crazy. Obviously we can clean up afterwards, but this is a pretty tight fit in there, so most of this is just going to ooze out, but you just want to make sure it's completely covered and we have a nice tight seal around the whole thing. There we are, that's the stent completely covered, and we can go ahead and slide this into place. And once the stent is sitting flush, we need to clean all this up, not only on the outside but also the inside as well. Of course, we don't want to block this coolant passageway. You need to get one of those sponges and a stick, push it in, make sure it's all nice and clean and free in there. And with the sealant now all cleaned up and the transfer pipe all now free of any debris, any sealant, all we need to do now is leave this to set for 24 hours, and then we can resume in installing our new water pump, etc. Okay, so around 24 hours has now passed, so that sealant should have went off now. We can begin reinstalling the water pump, and after 24 hours that sealant has gone off now, so we should now be ready to install the new water pump. Already installed the new seals, that one there, and then there is a small O-ring that sits in there, which I believe this pipe goes into. I just need to remember, when I get this into place, I need to insert the bolt into that hole there while lowering the water pump down into place. Let's see how easy this is going to be. Tell you what, I'm just going to apply a small amount of silicone spray to this pipe here, just so it slides in a bit easier. So, new water pump is in place, all 5 bolts now reinstalled. Yeah, it was a bit tricky getting that bottom bolt in. You just have to keep trying, I guess. I managed to do it after a couple of attempts. You know, you could, like I said before, just remove the front pulley, but I didn't really want to do that. It's just extra work that's not really needed. But if you are struggling, then of course that is an option that you can do. But yeah, new water pump in place. Also swapped out the coolant temperature sensor. That's there on the top. Now, before I install the new thermostat, I think I'm going to get the coolant reservoir swapped out. Should just be held in by 2 torque screws, and then just all of the pipes that connect to it. New coolant reservoir going in. To make sure you connect the level sensor. There we are, that's our new expansion tank installed. I'll get a new cap installed as well. No point doing it up tight yet, because obviously we need to add coolant. Now I am going to get the new thermostat installed. You see how I mentioned about how the genuine BMW stamp is kind of scratched off. It would be around there. It's just been ground off. Yeah, this Wala thermostat is exactly what they use from factory, and it's what BMW still use today. Yeah, gonna get this installed, make sure it's in the correct orientation. Okie dokie, so new thermostat now in place. All of the coolant hoses now reconnected up as well. Just now need to install the water pump pulley, and then I can get the drive back on then. And with the water pump pulley now back on and the belt back on, all that's left to do now is top up the coolant and bleed the system. Now if you are wondering how you tighten and torque down the 4 water pump pulley bolts, just put them in hand tight, then get the belt on, and then you'll just be able to torque them down to just 10 Newton meters. Again, don't need to go crazy, just 10 Newton meters is absolutely fine. So I think to begin with, before I fire up the engine, I may as well get the coolant expansion tank filled with a mix of coolant and some distilled water. Now obviously we have drained the system. We didn't drain it completely, you know, truth be told, there's probably, I don't know, 10 or maybe 20% of the old stuff still in there, but you know, you could try and locate the drain plugs on the block and maybe get that extra 10 or 20% out, but I'm really not that fussed, if I'm being honest. We've completely drained the radiator, we've got most of the original coolant out of the block, so I am just gonna fill it up now to the maximum. So I would imagine these systems hold around 10 litres in total. So I think what I'll do is, because I want a 50-50 mix between coolant and the distilled water, I'll just kind of add a litre of each at a time, and I will get a funnel just because I don't want to spill any of this. So yeah, we'll add about a litre of just neat coolant, followed by around a litre of neat distilled water. Add about another litre of coolant, followed by another litre of water. Just squeeze the pipes just to burp it through. Now what we'll do is get the engine fired up, which should get the water pump spinning, should then start circulating the coolant around the entire system. We'll leave the cap off just to bleed any air out of the system. Then we'll just continue to top up as required. Now I've just went ahead and reinstalled the air intake pipe and plugged the mass airflow sensor back in just to keep the engine idling happy. Now we need to fire the engine up and get the air bled out of the system, and then get the coolant up to the correct max mark, because as soon as I fire the engine up and the coolant starts flowing around, this should drop, and then as the engine gets up to operating temperature, the thermostat will open, more coolant will go through, and like I said, we'll be able to add the required amount to get to that max mark, which the maximum mark will be when the dipstick is at around that level just there. That's the minimum, and that should be the maximum. So I've just checked and we have 0 leaks, which is fantastic. So I'm just going to let the engine idle, get up to operating temperature, wait for that thermostat to open, and then we shall start to see the coolant level dropping somewhat. So you'll kind of know as well, once the air is bled out of the system, there's a small hole down in there. At the moment it's just kind of blowing air through, but once you have a steady stream of coolant flowing out of there, pretty much all the air is bled out of the system. Yeah, it's literally just bubbling at the moment. Okay, so I think I've gone as far as I want to go. I've let the engine run for about 30 minutes now. It's definitely up to temp. Check the coolant pipes and they're warm, so the thermostat is open, and we're just getting clear coolant run out there. The temperature, the coolant level hasn't dropped as much as I thought it was. It has dropped a bit, but yeah, I guess there wasn't as much air in the system as I thought. Now I will drive the car and then just keep checking the coolant level. It's one of those, I find that you'll do all the bleeding in the world and you think there's no air in the system, and then you'll go take it for a drive, and then what do you know, the coolant level drops. So it's just one of them. I'll take it for a drive and then top up as required. But for now, that is a very successful job done. And there we go then. That is another job done on the BMW 650i, and this car and this engine in particular should be pretty much bulletproof now. Pretty much taken care of all the main failure points. Like I said, I have driven this car for what, 5,000-6,000 miles or so. I took it on a over 4,000 mile road trip and it never skipped a beat. I absolutely love this car. But yeah, it just definitely does pay to do some preventive maintenance, and this thing is going to be good now for the next 100,000 miles or so with relatively few issues, I'm sure of it. I hope this video has been helpful. Hopefully it's been easy enough to follow along. Make sure you give it a like if you have enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below. Subscribe if you have not already done so. And remember, if you do want to get that Bimmerfix kit, I'll leave the details down in that description box below, along with the links for the water pump, thermostat, expansion tank and all the rest of it that I've installed as well. Like I said, I want to thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in that next one.